Okay, April 29th. April is almost gone. There's a lot of stuff going on. EI is having a meeting for T&D customers in San Antonio, and ETS 26 is happening as we speak. I will be keynoting tomorrow morning's day, talking about the software-defined power grid. We have a great guest today. AI continues to make havocs and great progress and incredible innovation. And the changes happening at the Fed. Hopefully that will remain calm and the economy will continue and investments will continue and maybe our international conflicts will stop at some point in the coming weeks. Anyway, before we get rolling here, let's have our own John Sibley Butler play some tunes.
Well, I know it's kind of late. I hope I didn't wake you, but what I've got to say can't wait. I know you'd understand. Every time I try to tell you, the words just came out wrong. So I'll have to say I love you in a song.
Woo! Now the sound is so crisp. It's just really great job with the microphone there, John Butler. What say you?
Well, I said that John Butler has got allergies today. As a matter of fact, I have to go take my allergy pill. Everything is good. I'm sitting here looking at what's going on in the country, looking at the attempted assassination, which we don't need, or whatever that was, and then looking at the country moving forward. I mean, we are in very, very difficult kinds of times. And when I say difficult times, I mean times of uncertainty. So that's kind of where we are. I was just reading Llewellyn's essay on AI and his essay on riding the train and looking at thinking about being on a train and going through history myself. But Andrea, that's kind of where we are, and I think the grid is coming to a certain kind of situation. We've got to have enough electricity to do all of this, and I'm just not sure about all the investment, although I think it will work out in AI. And as you know better than me, AI has produced a great deal of service organizations designed for all the companies to say, look, we will help you with AI, and AI will reduce and increase your revenue, and of course at the same time reduce your workplace. So it is an interesting kind of time.
Absolutely, absolutely. Llewellyn?
Well, thank you. I see it as a very unstable time. I think that while we have an open war going on and the price of Brent crude today reached $120 a barrel, which seems to be on its way up because about somewhere around a fifth of the world's oil supply is not reaching market. There's an impending food shortage because there is no fertilizer. Again, a great deal of the fertilizer, which is made primarily from natural gas, has to pass, or the way it has been established, passes through the Strait of Hormuz, and that is not open. We're doing other things. We seem, as a nation, to have lost sight of cause and effect, and that is a very dangerous thing because it means that the future is itself predictably uncertain. If you insult your allies, if you end your treaty relationships, if you undermine norms and replace them with abnorms, you have established a pattern for the future that is very destructive. For example, if you do suspend filibuster in the Senate, one of the great institutions of American parliamentary life, you have reduced the Senate to being little more than a parliament, but you have also taken away a tool that in future you might desperately want when the circumstances are different and when you as a political entity are in a different place than the one you are in now. So if there's one thing you see, if you ever covered police courts as a reporter or worked in them as a lawyer or in some capacity, you will know that one of the big problems creating really the jail population is a very poorly developed sense of cause and effect. A kid will take a knife to a party where there's drinking. He might use it. If he didn't have it, he wouldn't use it. Cause and effect. And yet, as a nation, we seem to have forgotten that rule because we're in such a desire to fulfill certain very short-term goals that we have forgotten our place in the family of nations, and particularly our moral leadership of the globe, which was the mark of the 20th century, but it is not likely to be the mark, to be the abiding great truth of the 21st century, because we have negated our moral leadership by abandoning our moral underpinnings. So it's a very precarious time. And the future looks as though it might belong to other countries and not to us because of foolish failure to comprehend cause and effect in our governance today.
Okay, well, I would say that since our guest is working for one of those great AI startups, that would be sort of the driver of our conversation. Uh, there is all these things going on, and it's just fascinating how OpenAI and Anthropic and Google are dominating this scene. And one of the things that I wrote about, I wrote an article that is going to get published by the Global Smart Energy Federation on what I call sovereign AI data management. The notion that, and you can run with this thought because it's already in writing. And maybe Patricia can elaborate on that and with their solutions. But one of the worries that the big companies will need to have in government agencies using AI with whatever third party is what I call the Hotel California effect. You can check in your data, but you can never check it out.
Yeah.
Once you share your data with somebody, it is their data as well. And so I don't know how the big companies are going to deal with that going forward, other than there are other solutions for what it's called private AI or sovereign AI. And that seems to be one of the biggest issues, preventing a lot of the big companies from disclosing what they're doing or accelerating and taking advantage of AI as it is today. And, this all reminds me, you guys, early days of the internet, we've talked about that, or early days of other transformations, but this one seems to be gigantic and unstoppable, and the genie's out of the bottle. So let me introduce Patricia Friar, who's the Chief Marketing Officer at Kinnami. And Kinnami fills a gap in data management technology required to make the connected future possible and the autonomous future a reality. Their secure, resilient data mesh ensures that irrefutable data integrity required in complex distributed networks, from edge device to the cloud. Welcome, Patricia.
Thank you. And thanks for that introduction too. And I enjoy getting together. Thank you so much for inviting me back. Because the first time I went to a Digital 360 conference, what really happened for me was to have hope, because we see climate change, we see energy issues, many things in front of us that we haven't had to deal with before and that are out of control. And at Digital 360, I saw lots of people working towards solution, which gives me hope, right? Although the military, I've learned recently, says hope is not a plan. So we have to have plans also along with that. Um, yeah, my company, I'm a longtime startup person in Austin, and um, at this point, in my life, I look back and see what it was that got me to where I am and what my interests are. Well, I hit Austin in '93, after having been in IT, working in the oil industry, in fact, for a specialty equipment manufacturer and so on. And I went back to graduate school. Anyway, I hit here and got to join MCC, an amazing research
Hmm.
consortium. And the project I was working on was spun out into a new company and funded. And it was an early internet. Their mission was to build software to commercialize the internet. So they had the first VPN, first Mac browser, so on. And for a marketer, well, first of all, I learned on their dime. But
Hmm.
second of all, we all learned somewhere, right? And I've had lots of experts around me. But secondly, it was truly innovative, market changing technology. And one where we couldn't see all the changes that were going to happen, and now we have. And it's hard to think about, it's just a few decades ago that we couldn't buy things over the internet, that sort of thing. So my company today, I work with, I've always worked with what I call infrastructure software. So software to me that's sustainable,
Hmm.
servers, networking, things that last beyond the latest fad and improve and truly drive efficiency. And I'm a mentor at Capital Factory here in Austin, and I get to talk to a lot of startups, which is very enriching and awesome. And that's where I met the group that I'm currently working with. I've been with them now for 5 years, between being an advisor and CMO for four. But what attracted me, because I thought I'd never work in a startup again, was they came in and started telling me about their technology. And having worked in data security, and really I'm a data person, um, I started hearing some of the things that they were working on that could solve hard networking problems like autonomous vehicles and complex distributed networks at the edge and electricity and all sorts of things. And um, today we are, further along and in developing this and testing. And currently we do work primarily with the DoD. We're also a NATO Diana Phase 1 and Phase 2 member. And so we do testing with our NATO partners as well. Team just got back from Finland, in fact, last week. So the thing about the technology, which we have accolades. Gartner Group analyst says this is what's needed. You might not realize it yet, but this is what everyone needs for their edge systems, because it changes the game from kind of the disparate way we looked at data and managing it from a set of tools and endpoint tools and networking and encryption to a unified system that is a data layer above the network and that can get the right data to the right place at the right time for those applications. So um, that's what we need. And it's not, for me, it's an interesting problem because I've worked with many technologies that were very early, and a lot of times the commercial market is dealing with other problems. Um, Shareholder driven a lot of times or various, and they don't really go and put the best technology in. We know best technology doesn't necessarily win. So,
Hmm.
but we're doing some amazing things. And grid is something that we think is applicable at some point. Today we're doing things securing data from sensors in remote conditions. One is with critical infrastructure, securing sensor data from bridges and taking it for high performance analytics, securing it, moving it to data centers for that. And with the idea of developing the AI algorithms in order to be able to monitor the bridges in real time. So
Mhm.
that's
So
something
are you 100% software or is there any hardware involved?
we are 100% software,
Okay. And
which
I download your software in my computer, my edge device, on my server.
at some point you will. Today, that's not the case. Today, it
Hmm.
takes a team of our engineers to go and work with our partners to one of the things that we're capable of is working in network denied areas, unstable networks, and where there's jamming, which is one
Hmm.
reason why we're of significant interest to the military. We can um, use multiple networks. We can switch. We're working towards switching between Bluetooth and a radio, whatever is there. So
Hmm.
we take mesh radios to a new level, for instance,
Hmm.
um, and allow whatever pathway we can find, we'll get the data through. But we also have advantages in that we persist the data. So when you're talking about, data integrity and the sovereign AI, you want to make sure that the data is original, that it is who from whom you think it's from going, and only accessible by who you would like to access it or the system.
Hmm.
So, um, and the data persists as we're moving it across the network.
Yeah. Pat, thank you
Got
for
it.
reminding me of Kay Hammer's evolutionary technology. That was at MCC, if you remember Kay
Oh,
Hammer.
I remember, yeah, and I remember her startup, and I wasn't really, yeah,
Yeah.
and
Well, let me ask you this: you've seen a lot, and you've seen Austin grow. And,
mhm.
and and when we look at technologies over the years, just tell me how AI is just so different. Just tell me, in terms of the job market, in terms of the expectations, in terms of the investment that's going in it. We've seen a lot of technologies come along. Just
So,
why is it so different?
you know, so I guess I'm going to have to give like my personal experience with it. I mean, I know we enable AI, but it's kind of like what's my personal experience um and how do I see I fear for some of the things that it might take away in developing skills that are needed. You know, I kind of look at it like my brain holds many, many years of experience, and I use AI to get those ideas out quickly and shape them. But if you don't have that experience, then you don't have that to work from. But I also want to say I have a good friend in Austin who's also his company's been doing AI for a long, long time in the energy industry, and he reminded me, and there were projects at MCC as well that um, AI, machine learning, it's just patterns. It's pattern recognition, and not to think that this thing has any kind of an intelligence beyond that. Um, so I think right now there's a lot more, in my opinion, there's a lot more credence being given to what it can do and solve than maybe what really can happen. I also know, since we work with the DoD, that the DoD does not look at machines taking over decision-making capabilities. They assist and they work side by side, but they're never in charge. And that's something that I think there's a reason for that. And I think when you're working in a, high stakes environment, um, and really the principles that they lay down are often good for the rest of the commercial world. It's just the commercial world works on a different um, budget and
Yeah.
shareholders and that sort of thing. So where they choose to budget money is different. But uh, yeah, I worry about the knowledge. I have grandkids, so I worry about what would I tell my grandkid to go study? Where are the job opportunities going to be? So I do think about those things. Um, and I hope that we don't miss that interim, really developing people to be thinkers and managers
Hmm.
on their own. So,
Yeah, I
um,
think the strategy and the liberal arts and the ideas are, and then of course you branch off into the what you do. Well, I agree. I think that it's something that we're going to have to babysit. But in Lou Allen's words, it's going to be a whole lot of babysitters to
well,
babysit this
there,
thing and to
yeah.
keep it going.
Well, one of the things we saw with the internet was um, it unleashed Pandora's box of evils. I didn't think it was when I first worked with it, people would say, "Oh, what's going to happen is all these connections between bad people or what, um, you know, people will be able to find each other that couldn't before." But I said, that's such a negative way of thinking. But there is truth to how people use. My mother, who is 98, has a lot of wisdom, said technology can be used for for good or for evil. So you or good or for bad. So people will make both choices, right?
Yeah,
But yeah.
it's been a long. Well, what is happening here is that so many industries there's an anticipation anxiety that's going on in industry, and I think it's the scientists who really understand that the repetitive stuff is real. I mean, if you're doing repetitive stuff, I mean, computers are designed to for pattern recognition, and if you're doing repetitive stuff, it's going to take your place. But I wonder if George Kosmetsky were here today to evoke a name in the
Hmm.
future, and he were to sit us down. He taught us to embrace the internet. He taught us to embrace business models. How did you see developing business models with this AI for your company? I mean, how will
Wow.
your company make money? I mean, if all the AI are controlled by four companies, and it's like saying that they only have the Britannica now. It's like going back to the Britannica. They only have the Britannica. What are we going to do?
You know, um, well, I think that all the I think the hype is that the AI is controlled by four or five companies, generative AI. I'm not an AI expert, but what I will say is other people have been using AI for a long, long time, and I understand that, from my last company that worked with the automotive industry, that the algorithms that were used were developed a long, long time ago. And so I don't personally know what else has been introduced uh, in addition to that, but um, I think it's a problem when there's so few companies that are such a large proportion of the market. Um, the S&P 500 is dominated by what, five companies?
Well,
Um,
yeah. So you were here when Dell started. We had lots of computer companies here, and I guess a
yeah,
company that was outperforming Mike was Austin Computers. If you remember Austin Computers back in the
my
90s.
first PC was an Austin computer, or was that my PC? Yeah,
Yeah,
when I was in graduate school, I got it.
yeah,
I
that was
had it.
Robert Dewan. Robert
Yeah,
Dewan had Austin Computers. And then, of course, all of a sudden, what we saw was that, the computers companies started to kind of fall away. And then, do you think we'll see the same thing with the AI? I mean, is it going to be so controllable that I can, does everybody have to go to the same place to buy the Encyclopedia Britannica now?
you know, I my
It's-
I guess my real personal thoughts on this are
Mhm.
that maybe there should be some breaking up of those. If there is a monopoly, that's not the way we do, that's not how we choose to do business in the US, right? Or
Right.
haven't for a long, long time. And so what I saw with the internet was, or what we saw was, the cats were out of the bag and the pendulum swings and everything goes crazy. And then there's enough trouble caused that regulations begin to be put in place to protect people. And unfortunately, how long, I'm glad, personally, I'm glad to see um, social media being called down for mental health issues. I'm really glad to see those things, and I think it needs to happen. And it's different for us because before we had concrete, it didn't involve, mental health has been such a um, unrecognized field for so long in terms of there's a lot of stigma around it and so forth. People treat it differently. And we're used to proving things differently. You use Roundup, you get cancer. It's like, oh, you use the internet, you get mental health issues, or how you use the internet. But that has really swung pretty far, and I think that the same thing will happen with AI. And I going to data veracity, I was said to my CEO the other day, I said, what we need to do with our software, or what there needs to be, is a button that you can press where you can see the lineage of all the data in your, it can be verified whether it's true or not. There's too many hallucinations, poor data, bad questions. We need tools that can provide that level of certainty.
Okay, well, thank you.
Um,
You're right in the middle of that. Yeah,
yeah, right. We're right in the
thank you.
middle of that.
Okay.
Llewellyn?
I want to say that I'm delighted, Patricia, to hear some of the things you are saying, especially your remarks about we should not allow a very small number of large companies to dominate AI or any other aspect of our national life. And I'm
Mhm.
particularly concerned with these companies buying up every startup that they think they can absorb. They generally kill them all rather than actually promoting them.
Mhm.
And that invention is denied us for some period of time, if not forever. I'd like to ask you to begin with, what is the derivation of the name of your company? Is it significant?
So, you're first of all, you're asking the communicator who did not create this. So I also have philosophy of names. So it does have a meaning. I didn't create it. It comes from kin and ami for friend in French. And the original, before the company was founded, the software, or one of the softwares being developed, was for sharing things securely between friends and kin. So that's how it got its name. I personally, I've been part of naming many companies, and engineers always like to build meaning into names. And I say you need to have something that's a strong, unique brand name. I love Kinnami. It sounds like tsunami to me. It's strong and it has good, hard consonants. And I'm a communicator, so that's important to me.
I'd like to question, if I might have the temerity to question your assumption that because we control AI, that we really do. But once you've got something as big as AI and you think you're driving it, but you really aren't, and you're so dependent on it that by the time the human dimension is added, it may actually be irrelevant. The I think it's a lovely idea to think that people will always be able to grab the controls, but there's already evidence that that is probably erroneous.
I, you know, um, I think that some people would like for AI to manage the controls, and what the things I find that it cannot replace creativity. It's, it could write a novel, and you could even say write in a style of a particular writer, but writing is something that is unique to humans and how we communicate. And it's actually taking an idea from your brain and putting it down and communicating to a reader somewhere around the world. And that can't be replicated by AI. So it can't do it. They will try to do it. People will try to do it. There's I don't know. Will people get to the point where they uh, are discerning enough to, every time they go online, go, well, I need to understand whether this is real or not, or generated by AI, uh, or who's behind it? Yeah.
I'm excuse me, I've got something in my throat, so I apologize. I'm interested in the idea of sovereign AI, which I've also heard described as small language and other terms that suggest that you can have a stream of AI that is secure, that will not proliferate across the AI horizons, and that can be controlled like any other possession. And that's very attractive. I wonder, do you really believe this will happen? AI seems to be fiendishly able to break down the barriers we put around it.
I probably Andres is the person to answer that. I really don't know enough to be able to provide an answer for that one.
I was interested in what you were saying about sensors and bridges and the
Yeah,
enormous amount of data. I
right,
wonder how closely the electric grid is censored, because remember, in today's society, electricity is everything.
right,
Without it, we don't have AI, we don't have data, we don't have this program, and I won't be able to read my book tonight.
right. Yes, the grid is heavily censored. It it's heavily with sensors on it. And yeah, again, Andres, I know that's your particular area of engineering, but it's I think some of the problems that we have with the grid is that we have disparate devices. We have, many legacy, it's a big integration problem as well as optimization problem, as well as, so where, when you can create, I think the vision of having a data layer in the grid as part of the grid is to have a data layer that is verified, the veracity of the data, and it's unique and traceable and all the things that you want, but it's able to be shared among everything you want it to be in the grid.
I've
Today,
watched,
pardon me?
sorry, yeah, I beg your pardon.
Yeah, I've seen AI, some early companies doing things with AI at the edge with energy, but it's really at the substation level and not beyond that. So,
I'm wondering, I'm not a data person, so I'm a neophyte here. I'm wondering, how do we understand data? At Los Alamos National Laboratory many years ago, where I was shown a kind of a visual representation of a nuclear detonation, because the scientists were baffled by the data. There was so much data coming out of it. There was heat here, there was a
yeah,
cold area there was a wind here, there was a vortex there. I mean, enormous number of things happening at one time. And in order to understand it, they wanted to look at it on something like a kid's kaleidoscope.
right. Well, think of MRIs. I had an MRI recently, and I went to for the caregiver to go over it, and I left thinking this is amazing technology because um, they're using magnetic resonance that's picking up data from our cells down to like cell types and structure or density, and that but then it's converted into ones and zeros, and then it's a point cloud, right? And then it's reconstituted in a three-dimensional point cloud that they can, when you go sit there with the doctor, they layer by layer go down and show. I was had an X-ray of my neck or a MRI of my neck, so they go, here's this vertebrae. Okay, now let's peel that one back. Now let's look at so yeah, that's a lot of it's a lot of data. They might say, I mean, those files can't be gigantic because they send them across the internet. But um, yeah, the data is immense. So, but it's sorting. Well, I guess for me, because it's a huge problem. Data is a huge problem. It's sorting. It's starting with the critical data that is essential for systems to run and not, some systems they can stop and you'll be okay. They'll bring them back up again. We all lost a lot of trees in the storm 5 years back here in Austin. I, in the ice storm with no electricity for 3 days. Um, but we don't want that to be the case. So how about if we start with the critical data? Where I look today, we look at problems like the autonomous vehicles in Austin that are driving around, and I see them all the time on Lamar, and they do things that are not what they should be doing, and they can't they you had that experience too, John, I see.
I have too. Yes.
Yes, but there's a particular intersection that I cross during rush hour where a human will hold and let you through because the road's so jammed, and I almost got hit by a Waymo because they're just flying through until they slam the brakes on. But now there's some cases in court here about that have to do with they pass school buses illegally. So now they have something besides Patricia driving home and being inconvenienced. They have kids who might be walking across the street. So those are data cases where there's real danger. The Waymo that blocked the EMS down when there was a shooting in Austin. That's critical data did not get where it needed to get on time and in the right form. And what data was, what is Waymo not integrated in the emergency EMS system?
Mhm.
And it's the same with we need to at least start with the cases where human life is involved, or not having systems that alert people when there's a flood. And here in Austin, Texas, we had those terrible floods. What was it? 2 summers? Is it going to be 2 summers ago? Yeah. I mean, there wasn't even an alert system on people's cell phones. So how about if we look at where things are failing really badly? And that's what
Mhm.
the critical data, if we can fix those, we can fix the other.
I would like for
Okay,
Andreas.
can I ask a final question in this series?
Yeah.
You mentioned, Patricia, startups, that you'd worked with a lot of startups. And we've come in our conversations to tend to think of startups as being somehow bright pebbles, whereas some are and some are not. And we also tend to think of them only in the computer ecosystem, not, the chap starting a restaurant or the woman starting a clothing shop. And in fact, they're a very good sign of a healthy, thrusting economy, but they're not some sort of magic bullet, are they? How many startups succeed? You have data on that?
How many what? How many succeed? Well, a VC would tell you they look for 1 in 10, right? Um, I've worked for a number of startups and I've helped turn around and brand a number in my own agency, but I guess the statistics are most startups don't succeed. That's what you should expect,
Mhm.
or that they inch along and don't do very well. But to something that Andres was talking about was, the consolidation in the market. Or maybe John brought that up, but it's that there are all these, anytime there's a new technology or dire, a real need in the market, you'll see a lot, like in the internet time, a lot just coming out with solutions. When I had to, I was back then, there were many directory services besides Google. Google was a latecomer. I don't even remember them being in the first bunch.
Mhm.
My company had one of the first services. Some of the guys I work with say it was the first search engine. But what happens is the market shakes out between money, money that's backing things, companies that are well run versus ones that are not, technology that's truly differentiated and solid, and um, so a lot.
Yeah.
just go away. And that's what's been interesting from the working with Capital Factory is that have seen different trends in what people are working on to solve. And lately, there are a lot of AI and data center efficiency and things that, we need. But 5 years back, it was wedding directories on the internet and things like that, which is not infrastructure software. So, but
Well,
different things.
Pat, I would like for our host, I would like for our host Andreas to tell you his solution for your data to solve poverty. He's been a little reluctant to talk about that, but when we are private, he hasn't mentioned it in about 2 years. But since there's so much data, we're having so many data. I'm going to introduce our new hero. I'm going to take over the program. No, Andreas, seriously, why don't you tell us your solution so that she can develop your business model?
Yeah,
I would like to.
I think inevitably as we move to a world of everything digital, data is, has been talked about becoming the new oil, and because everything it's an element in the ecosystem or the universe. Everything has data, right? And we're made out of data. And humans generate data from waking up to breathing and everything else. And so the notion of somehow monetizing the data and leveraging the data and doing something with the data is super important, right? And today we are, I would call it the early stages, the baby steps of digitalization of the whole planet as we go from an analog physical world to a total digital world, where you may recall the movie Tron,
Mm,
where he mysteriously, enters the data realm and never comes back to the living side, right?
mhm.
So my idea has always been, and I wrote this in June 3rd, 2020, as the pandemic was starting to happen, and I thought to myself that one of the impacts of the pandemic was going to be the displacement of so many people. And actually, the pandemic sort of began that in the whole telecommuting. But really, AI may be the catalyst that pushes that beyond. And some people have already articulated that governments should pay a salary, at least a minimum living wage salary to every human, so they have, money to eat and stuff. And so my idea is sort of the following: collect the data of each person and allow each to get compensated at the rate of $25 for each 2 gigabytes of data. So obviously the person would have to, allow for that to happen. And in order to collect the data, all kinds of sensors would need to be put where I live, or maybe it's wearables, with my Apple Watch or my Aura Ring or what have you. So you can collect my data, my vitals and my organs and how I'm functioning and breathing and this and that, and
Mm.
my hours of sleep and my dreams. And there's all kinds of potential recording technologies coming up. And so a normal person, on average, generates 10 terabytes of data annually. So if you multiply $25 for every 2 gigabytes times the 10 terabytes annually, that is roughly $125,000 per human a year for just allowing me to, collect my data and authorize that it could be used for anything, right? It could be research and development, it could be whatever, right? So you can think of, if I was a corporation and I could collect data, which is what Google and Meta and Amazon and all these companies do for a living with their advertising. But if I could collect that data, right, from anywhere by clicking and paying, then as a researcher, I could have live access of your heart, of your lungs, of your
Right,
whatever I'm collecting. And that data should be incredibly valuable to so many people, right? So many companies, right?
right.
So even a regular person walking on the street may be actually super rich because they have some abnormal heart function that is super important to the research they're doing for whatever. And today, that person doesn't get anything for it. But if but maybe that person should be actually being well compensated for being a living proof of something that has never been understood. So that's the notion behind it. And obviously that would require privacy and licensing in a
Yeah.
platform that I could trust. So today I give my data for free to Facebook and Apple and Amazon and everybody. And it shouldn't be that way. It should be that I author my data through a platform in a registry, and then there is a
Mhm.
marketplace that monetizes my data. But it's all, you know, basically on behalf of the person and not
Yeah.
really on the behalf of the bottom line of the corporation and the capital markets.
I I think that's a good idea. I mean,
I think
um,
it's going to
I
happen at
love
some
the
point.
idea. I'm not sure about the economics, but I think the idea it fits in with an idea I have about basic human values. One of Timmerman, uh, congratulated Jimmy Carter on. I never congratulated Jimmy Carter on anything, but except this idea that everybody has personal dignity. They have data and they have dignity, and they're entitled to it, and they're entitled uh, uh, to have it recognized. And I think in that sense, you're very right, Andres.
Yeah, I think that everybody has value, right? And you
yeah.
know, and not
So,
not just on their output and what they create with their brain or their hands, but just from living, there's
yeah,
value in that we're a system, we're a machine, right?
yeah.
And we are producing output and generating ourselves and this and that. And some people age better than others. Some people, have all these different capabilities. And to me, all that has value. And today we're just learning how to harness that.
No. Yeah, I think it needs to start with recognition. Today, anytime you want to turn off access to your data, you know, anytime you get on an app somewhere, they make it difficult to do that.
Yeah.
They assume we're going to take you can turn your data off anytime you want, is what they say, but then they make it very difficult. It's just like subscriptions. You can go
Oh
up a
yeah,
level,
yeah,
but
yeah.
you can't go
You can
down.
cancel it, but you can't, or
That's
Yeah.
right.
great difficulty.
That's
Yeah,
why that's why I call that the Hotel California syndrome. You can check in, but you can never check out.
that's good. I
Well,
like that.
we've checked our privacy and we can't get it back, I think.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
it's yeah, it's a problem.
So
Yeah.
so 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 I'm looking at the time, and I would like you to tell us real quick, where are you? And I know that, because of your customers are in defense, it's kind of hard to talk about things, but how do you see the progress of what you're trying to do in terms of those who have seen the value and are testing it and trialing it? What's the generic feedback? What can you share about, this is breakthrough, it's going to create an incredible capability. What feedback can you
So
share?
so we do get it's breakthrough, and I want to also temper that with I know that there are many other startups trying to solve the same problem, and maybe we're the best. Uh, but the best isn't always the one that is, that
Mm-hmm.
makes it. It's not always one that gets chosen. And sometimes technologies are even bought and put on the shelf. Like I've seen that happen before with breakthrough technologies. Um,
Yeah.
but we do some of the things that we are doing is we can secure data. Um, when we're working with the 563rd Search and Rescue
Mm-hmm.
group, and they want to be able to send a swarm of drones out to find missing people in comms denied environments. Instead of sending a helicopter out, a manned helicopter to cover a lot of area. Well, they do have beacons, right? Or some,
Mhm.
hopefully some kind of communication device, but to find them and to pick up the data, including coordinates and biometrics, and then be able to hop the data back to other members of the search team of command and control. And that is something that's very valuable, not just in search and rescue, but many, many places in commercial and the military. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, so the reviews are very positive still. But nothing's, one of the most important things is um, nothing ever moves as fast as you want, and there's lots of work to do. That's what I will say. But testing and doing pilots is the most important thing. So we're looking, and each time you move to kind of a different technology readiness level. So we're still moving up. We're about a technology readiness level 6 or 7.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's a lot of progress.
It is a lot of progress because we were just way before that before. It's
Right.
a lot of progress.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. So I'm looking at the time, guys. So I don't know if you have any more comments or final thoughts or.
I have to go. I'm taking me some pit, but really, hey, this is great, and I'm gonna leave you a song here to think about. Hey, tomorrow, where are we going?
Very good.
Do you have some room for me? 'Cause the night is falling, the morning is calling, and I will have something for us today.
Hmm.
I thought about that. Okay, yeah. So I'm going to take off. So it's been very, very good. I've got somebody who just came in my house, so I'm gonna leave. And it's good to see you again. And those days of MCC just fabulous. And I wish you all the
Yeah.
success in the future. Okay.
Thank you so much.
All righty.
Great. Thank you, Johnny. Llewellyn, any final thoughts or
Well, it's
comments?
always a pleasure to talk to Patricia. She has wonderful ideas and a lot of common sense, and I've
Always. Yeah.
so enjoyed being with her. And it's a unique program because I haven't insulted John Sibley Butler once, which means I may be suffering something. I shall have to see a
Okay.
physician.
You're taking a day off. That's all.
That's all. Okay. I gotta go. Bye bye.
Bye,
Bye.
Bye,
Johnny.
John.
Patricia, what's in front of you the next 6 months? What's going on the next 6 months?
Oh, well, several industry events. We have testing with NATO. Well, I guess Soft Week is a big event that's coming up when the Special Operation Forces, and that's in May. I'm going to
Hmm.
be going to a health conference here in health technology. They now have Health Supernova. But then we have testing in the fall with 2 different NATO initiatives, uh, and there's another one that I remember. There's another week of testing, so lots of stuff, lots of good
Okay.
stuff. Hmm.
Okay.
And
Well, we wish you the best and thank you again for sharing. And, we'll let time go by and we'll circle back and see if you guys made some significant progress and we can have another chat.
yeah, great. Thank you so much. It's great seeing you, and I really enjoyed this. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody. Have a great week.
All the best.
All
Bye
right.
bye.
Bye
Bye.
bye.